And we're back. The government is cutting the public service. The guillotine falls. What's really happening? Social media ban. Is that going to work? Unintended consequences? And Uncle Winston wants to buy us a bank. Whee! Welcome to Maxim Institute's Select Committee, the Politics Podcast. Welcome to Marianne and Thomas. Hey, guys.
Hey, Tim. Hi. How we doing?
Good. Let's talk about the cuts to the public service. These cuts were made on the basis of efficiencies through AI, Thomas. Is that a thing? Is that going to happen? What do you say?
Well, so the government got elected talking about efficiencies in the public service and cuts to spending. They've made a lot of hay out of the previous government, sort of radically expanding the size of the public sector. So now they're finally beginning to deliver on their campaign promises, or at least they announced it today, and we have to see the details to come. And so they've used AI as some of the language around efficiency. I think probably that's a lot of it is to get cut through. I mean, really what they're talking about is shared services and structures between different public sector entities. But AI does have a role to play in it. We just need to see the details.
We need to see how it's going to actually work, because at the moment the government does use AI for different things. So, for example, I think MPI, Ministry for Public Industries, they scan footage on fishing boats, and well, you don't need a schmuck sitting there to do that. So, get the robots to figure that out. They're saying it's the back of office stuff, aren't they, Thomas?
Yeah, so what they're wanting to do is build kind of a shared platform of services so that different entities, people interact with public sector agencies for a wide range of purposes. A lot of those IT functions, that digital infrastructure can be shared and efficiencies can be found there. And so that's what they're hoping, is that these will, allow cost savings, throughout the public sector. But really they're wanting to go further than that as well. They're saying they've got too many bureaucrats, too many officials, and so they're wanting to make cuts because they need to save money.
Okay, Marianne, crucial question. Is it real?
And the fact that we've been talking about cuts to public service for like 2 years, and we look at what the cuts look like, doesn't even look like a trim. Going back to 2017.
Wait, 9,000 people, that seems like a haircut.
It does. We've got 16,000 more than there were in 2017, and public services have not improved. So, I mean, the argument's there. It sounds like a very good idea. AI sounds like a good idea if it's done right. The question is this just continuing talking about it, or is there actually a plan? We hear words like sinking lid policy. That's not a cut. That's an intention to change the direction, which might happen, but you kind of have to wait for the details and wait for the numbers to actually reduce.
Okay, so I'm hearing skepticism, and maybe you're sniffing a bit of campaign politics.
There is the potential, if we rolled it back to 2017 numbers, that's like $2 billion a year just in salaries. Great idea. Is it going to happen? Probably not.
Okay. And I think one of the things is because media located in Wellington, where a lot of the public sector is as well, it's very easy for media to write stories about public sector cuts to make it seem larger than it has been. So you mentioned, we've had a lot of news stories over the last couple of years of public sector cuts. People have been cut, but overall the public sector is not notably smaller than it was. But it's very easy to write the news story. And then you go to the cafe owner in Wellington and say, look, this will affect our business. So you've got the kind of the genuinely sad personal stories, but the structural conversation about, is the public sector smaller, never as big as it sounds like.
And that's why we're having this conversation now. Speaking of structure, AI and government, Thomas, doesn't Maxim have a paper coming out about this very topic very soon?
Absolutely. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll be releasing a paper on AI in government titled Algorithmic Government. And we're kind of asking the big questions about, if AI is deployed in government, how do we actually do that well? And particularly, it raises a lot of important moral questions and kind of philosophical, political questions about, well, why would we use AI? How can we use it well? And upon what basis would we say this was a good use of AI? Because too often, public sector agencies will grab a tool out of the box. This seems nice, let's use it. But we want to ask the hard questions about when and how can we use AI better in government?
And also, I think often the public service has enough difficulty being humane with humans in it, because of the necessities of bureaucracy, etc. Once robots are instituted as well, there's another level of risk. Can't wait for that paper.
And I think like you're onto something there, because too often people think about, oh, we can just, chat GPT, generate some text, and that's what they're thinking about with AI. But go back to your use of MPI using AI to examine footage, right? Like that's on boats. You can see why it's a really good use case. And there's a whole lot of kind of footage we have to evaluate, and we get AI doing that. If we start evaluating traffic, then AI is kind of checking traffic patterns, and then it starts making recommendations about roads. How do we, are we letting the robot, the algorithm, make recommendations about roads? How do we get human input into that? It raises some really big, important questions.
And FYI for you, a lot of human input in this. None of this is generated by ChatGPT. Let's move to another hot topic, the social media ban. Seems like it's on again, off again, Marianne. Where is it? What's happening?
This is a question I think everyone is asking. It kind of is in that class of things where we see another country, usually Australia, doing it, and 5 minutes later we're like, we have to do it too. This must be a great idea.
The fastest laws in the West. If Australia does it, New Zealand does it.
And so we've got a private member's bill that's been put on pause while a government bill is being formed. So we don't know actually what it's going to look like. It sounds like it will be somewhere along the lines of what Australia is doing. And the crazy thing is, you've got Labor and National in principle agreeing, like Labor's not going to say, yay what you're doing, National. But in principle agreeing. And then you've got the Greens and ACT going, no, we don't, for very different reasons. So we've got the major parties putting forward what's basically a populist policy idea, and you've got the minor parties with the reality check, with some valid reality checks.
Oh my goodness. So ACT and the Greens working together.
Not working together, but they're on the same...
speaking from the same song sheet,
yeah, they've got very different reasons.
Very different reasons.
ACT's pointing out that the only way you can have a social media ban is if everyone, because you got to prove you're not under 16, everybody then is going to be giving up biometric data or other ID or having to jump through hoops. And then if you go, is it worth all these risks? And you look at Australia, however many, 6 months in or whatever it is, and actually 85% of 13 to 15-year-olds are still on social media. So what's the win here? You do have less engagement on social media. The Greens are saying what this is going to do and what it's seen to be done overseas is it's going to take kids who would be engaging on Facebook and Snapchat and whatever else they normally are on, and they're going to opt for darker corners of the web, which I don't know what they are because I don't get any darker than X. But, there are less moderated areas, and there will be some kids who end up engaging, and probably still are, with others in areas that are even more of a Wild West than Facebook. So there are these real things to consider that I'm not convinced are being considered in this legislation.
Okay, so and just my footnote there was probably not that many kids on Facebook. All their uncles and aunties and grandparents are on Facebook. Thomas, ACT and the Greens not working together but same song sheet. Isn't this MMP working in some way, shape or form?
Well, I think it is, like, as a structural question, MMP working. There's nothing wrong with, National proposing a policy and not getting their coalition partners on board, but Labor getting involved. I think
this is like Wayne Brown's dream. National and Labor working together.
Exactly. And I think, like, as a structural question, I like that in principle a bill could be shepherded through the House this way. You don't want both kind of sides of the House not agreeing to work together on principle on all issues. But I think this bill really does kind of raise important questions about not just what are the kind of the goals we're trying to achieve, but the how. And Marianne's already pointed this out. If you could come to me with a magic trick where you snap your fingers and no 16-year-old could access social media, I would probably support that. I think there is a substantive good there that people are trying to get on, trying to get across the line. That would be great. The only reason I don't support it is that you can't do that. And then all of these kind of side effects of the policy are really bad. So it's always that important question, not just what goods are we trying to achieve, but what are the downsides of our policy? And I just don't see how a social media ban can really do what it wants to.
Hang on, let me try it. No, they're still on it. No, still on it. It's just not working. I think what's important here too is when we look at the assertion that a piece of legislation makes, we need to assess the unintended consequences or the consequences that people are aware of, but are just sweeping under the rug. Okay, now this is the one you've all been waiting for. Winston Peters wants to buy the BNZ. Seems like campaign season is open and the horses are running, Marianne.
Oh, definitely. He's taking a 30-year-old bad decision and going, I'm going to fix it with another bad decision today. And it's not even like this is something you can just go and do. It's not for sale. If it were to be for sale, it would be for a very inflated price.
Hang on. Oh, wait. Can I do my magic trick?
Yeah.
Again?
Is it for sale?
Ah.
It's still not for sale.
It's not for sale.
Yeah, which is classic campaign. Come up with something that is populist that people will think, wouldn't that be great? We've got a national bank. Why don't we do something with KiwiSaver too?
Oh, Kiwi Bank.
Kiwi Bank, sorry. Yes.
And that was the commentary that I think Sam Stubbs made. Okay, so beef up Kiwi Bank because that would we don't necessarily need
plenty more that could be done in that space. That wouldn't cost whatever it is, $25 billion.
But maybe Kiwi Bank doesn't have the same name recognition as the Bank of New Zealand. Thomas, this was released on a Sunday afternoon. It's a news desert, and guess what? Winston Peters is all over the legacy media on Monday morning, fighting with people about it.
Yeah, I mean, so in that sense, it's he announces the thing and is able to get some news headlines about it. I think this kind of reveals one of the challenges we're increasingly going to find in MMP, where we're having these kind of strong coalition partners, is that it's very easy to announce a policy and then not be held accountable to delivering it. We've kind of already identified the challenges. It's not for sale. Their price would be incredibly high, and it's not clear what good it would actually achieve. Like, how would it make consumers' lives actually better? So 3 strikes on what makes a good policy. But Winston isn't actually going to be pressured to deliver this because you get to the negotiating room and then you say, oh, this policy I couldn't deliver. Yeah, the other guys said no. And so it's genuinely a problem for election campaigns because it used to be parties would make incredibly bold promises they probably couldn't deliver. And then voters would say, well, you didn't deliver the thing. But now they're all going to be scapegoating each other, and so it's very convenient for all parties in the coalition to say, oh, look, the other guys said no. I wasn't allowed to do the thing I definitely could have achieved if I wanted to.
Yeah, so for you who are watching this, put your campaign goggles on. Will this really happen? Is this actually a thing? And hold parties to account in that fashion at the ballot box. Let's move to Fantasy Beehive. What happens with Fantasy Beehive is we pick a trio of MPs, and one of them turns out to be the best performer, and let's just go around. I've got 2 that I want to talk about. We'll get to that, but who'd you pick, Thomas? Who'd you pick, and how did they go?
Well, so my best performer of the week was Paul Goldsmith, and I think it reveals in Fantasy Beehive the difference between why they succeed and why people might think they succeed. So Goldsmith, Minister for Public Service and Digitising Government, and we've just had a big announcement today about cuts to the public sector because of AI. Well, that's public service and that's digitising government. But actually, Goldsmith performed really well this week because he's Minister for Treaty Settlements, and 3 made their way through the House, as well as an amendment to public sector bills. So Goldsmith was my standout performer, but it's really for stuff in the House, not campaign announcements, that have gotten points this week.
Yeah, and that's what Fantasy Beehive does. We balance media performance within the House performance plus vibes. What's vibes again? Remind me.
The voter impression and broad evaluation score.
Okay, there you go. Voter impression, broad evaluation score, i.e. it's something kind of woozy. What about you, Marianne? Who'd you pick? Who's your best performer?
I should have picked Paul Goldsmith this week instead of last week.
You picked him last week.
Yeah, and he got like 5 points, and this week is like 70. So I was off by a week. I picked Winston Peters. Because both he and I thought his bank heist would get more headlines than it has. So it wasn't actually, maybe it fell down in the vibes. I don't know. But he was my strongest this week. Again, I don't know, for like 6 points or something.
Okay. Look, I picked Barbara Edmonds and another one that I'll get to, Francisco Hernandez, for a bit of a little funny takeaway. I picked Barbara Edmonds because she's a pretty solid performer. I'm thinking, we're coming into the election cycle. There's some economic news. What she actually got mentioned for, which I really like, was in Judith Collins' farewell speech, as someone whom Judith Collins had worked well with across across the floor of the House. And this is something also with campaign season vibes. Actually, we'll drop the vibes part. Campaign season is parties will say, "Oh no, we don't play with those schmucks." Well, they do, and that's something that should be encouraged. It should actually be a question like, "Who have you played nicely with in the House, and how's that worked out?" So just again, keep the campaign goggles on. And I don't think Barbara Edmonds actually did that well, nor did Francisco Hernandez, who's a Green MP, who was actually at the youth climate event, schools climate event, which we can debate that later. But a sign at that event got my attention and suggests there is hope for the young. The sign said, "I want a hot boyfriend, not a hot planet." If you can be protesting and funny at the same time, you're getting there. That's us from the Select Committee. We'll see you again next week.